Yes, indeed. Welcome into a rare Wednesday edition of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. That over there is at Christopher Merez. I am at Puck Thoughts, Adam Bernard. And yes, Wednesday I'm on jury duty. So time we'd normally be live, I will be sitting in a courtroom somewhere. Hopefully not getting selected, but I do know I have to go back. Nonetheless, and if I get selected, maybe who knows when next week's episode happens. Nonetheless, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We got hockey to talk about tonight. We got some series exact results to odds to look at, and Chris will talk plenty about the Canadiens here in a minute as they kick off their series against the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo tonight. Did you even look into trying to go to Buffalo for a game, or how did that go?
I did. Logistically, it was not possible. The turnaround time was, it wasn't that it was quick. First of all, I guess Buffalo realized that Habsens would be there because ticket prices were a little bit too much. Also, flying from Montreal to Buffalo seems like you can't, like, there's no direct flight, which I was like, okay, that's one thing about it. But listen, I don't want to go all the way down to Atlanta and then come back to Buffalo. I feel like that is a waste. So flight wasn't that great. Also trying to find accommodation, just not as friendly as it was when I was looking about maybe entertaining the idea of going to Tampa. Main reason is nobody is.
Oh, it's a good 6-hour drive, so that's not even like a road trip. Like, you could do it as a road trip. That's a hefty drive.
Listen, it's doable. The main problem is nobody's around to watch Milo. So I decided I was just going to watch, from the comfort of the couch.
There you go. That's how it goes in the playoffs sometimes. But hey, the Canadiens have certainly given you plenty to watch and be on the edge of your seat about in the playoffs. Now, before we get to tonight's games, let's just quickly talk about, they did have the draft lottery. Toronto miraculously ends up with the top overall pick. Funny how that works out. That's neither here nor there. The Sharks, and living out in Sharks country, let me tell you, like, everybody over the moon about getting the second. Like, we take Stenberg, and then we trade maybe the other first round pick and somebody else to get a defenseman. So it's like people are out shopping already. Like, and it's kind of cool to see. And yeah, good for them. Toronto will have the first overall pick. So Gavin McKenna, you're heading to Toronto.
That's basically it. It's been a whirlwind week for the Leafs, between the press conference with John Chaika, that whole fiasco, and then them winning the draft lottery, which, you can call it rigged, you can call it whatever you want. It is what it is. Here's the worst part, though, about them winning is how unbearable that fan base now is going to be until that pick is made. Like, I thought maybe we could not have to deal with the Leafs this time of year. Unfortunately, the hockey gods were like, nope, we're not going to do that. But for the Sharks, listen, they moved up a ton. And I get that sometimes a rebuild, like, the ping pong ball's got to go your way. I get it. But it's also then making those ping pong balls count. And this is another, a second round pick. There are good prospects at the top there. This may not be the deepest draft, but there are good players there that you could add, especially for the Sharks. Another top 3 pick to an already very impressive group, right? Like, they remind me a lot of the Montreal Canadiens in a certain way. There's this whole wave of young, talented kids that are showing up in the Bay Area, and once that clicks, it's going to go off, and there is no stopping it. Greer may have been laughed at the beginning and be like, oh, what is he doing, yada yada, but he's starting to cook, so I would watch out.
And you mentioned the Canadiens there. They have the Carey Price contract, so maybe that's the Carey Price effect. Like, maybe it's him.
Listen, it's possible. His contract actually finished at the end of the regular season, so technically he is no longer under contract. He's no longer receiving a check in any way from the San Jose Sharks. But listen, maybe that's what you needed in order to win another pick. But Again, it was nice to see that the Sharks got another good pick, because it just reinforces the idea that if you tear it down and rebuild it properly, you can have, or the likelihood of you having success for the better part of a decade is there. You just got to do it right. So all those
And
other
be patient for those through those 11-1
you,
games that happen.
you
Sometimes it's twice in a week.
yeah, you got to listen. You got to be very patient. I was patient when the entire AHL team was playing, with the big club, and some of those guys up there. We've come. Listen, we've come a long way. Habs fans have come an extremely long way. I feel like Shark fans too, because we used to just target the over and the puck line against them, because that seemed to hit every night. But tides are turning here slowly.
Oh, speaking of the Canadians, they dropped the series with Buffalo Sabres coming up here at the top of the hour, and you see there what it looks like in the second round. Carolina's got the 2-0 lead there, and see who gets out to a 1-0 series lead out there in Western New York tonight. Looking on the money line here, minus 130 for the Sabres. Now up to minus 142 since I graphic created, and plus 120. So money coming in on Buffalo there. The puck line still sitting at plus 190 for Buffalo to cover a puck and a half. Looking at a regulation victory. I'll get you an updated number on that in a second. If you're looking at the over 5.5, minus 122, the under 5.5, plus 102. Just some nuggets going into that game. It's the first playoff series between these two teams since 1998. Montreal, all 7 games of their first round series decided by 1 goal. Slavkovsky's got a 6-game goal drought after opening up with a hat trick in game 1. Caulfield, he's got 8 goals in his last 8 games versus Buffalo, including a 3-game goal streak. Suzuki, 19 points in his last 8 games versus Buffalo. Hudson, 12 points in 8 career games against Buffalo. So there you go. If you're looking for some props tonight, that could potentially help you out. Buffalo's outscored Boston 14-5 in the last 4 games of their series. However, they are 1 for 46 on the power play since the beginning of April, and 1 for 24 in the first round overall. Tage Thompson, 8 goals and 10 assists in his last 13 games versus Montreal. So what is your, obviously, I know you're going to try and remove your bias as best you can here, being a big Habs fan here, but before game 1 pick, just overall handicap of the series here, or high scoring, or low scoring. I mean, what are we expecting here between these two teams?
I expect the first couple of games to be just as physical, if not more physical, for the Canadiens than what they saw against Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay was very in their face to begin. They tried to intimidate him. Montreal was like, hey, we're not doing that, going back and forth. And then as the series went on, everybody kind of just got in their chair and said, okay, we don't want to take a bad penalty. We don't want to give it up. The margins were so thin on both sides. So I get Buffalo's going to want to come out strong here, show the Montreal Canadiens that they can compete. And to be fair, they can. Like, Buffalo is a wagon. They went out there. They have earned their spot. I had Buffalo winning in 7. They said, hey, 6 is good enough for us. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And they were out to a 3-0 series lead against the Sabres, against the Bruins, who weren't a terrible team. They just didn't play well. Sabres didn't do themselves any favors. And Alex Lyon takes over from Ukko-Pekka-Luukkonen, and everything seems to just settle into place. Buffalo as well, that back end is like, we're talking about big boys. There are some, when you're 6'2" or 6'3" and the small guy, like, that's saying something. And yes, the Buffalo Sabres, maybe from a defensive and a tactic standpoint, they are not the Tampa Bay Lightning. There is no Anthony Cirelli on that side. Like, give him credit. Give Tampa Bay credit. They did exactly what they needed to do. They held Montreal's top line to 1 point, 5-on-5. It was a Suzuki goal that was massively huge. But again, 1 point. The Canadiens are going to have their opportunity in this series. They're going to have their chances to generate offense. Again, no disrespect to anybody on the Buffalo Sabres. There is no Anthony Cirelli. This isn't a team that's won Stanley Cups year after year. There's going to be some space, but you have to take it. So I expect this to start off with a little bit more of a bang. And as the series goes and it gets tighter, every team's going to balance it out, because you do not want to shoot yourself in the foot by taking a bad penalty. You do not want to get caught being the only guy coming out of a scrum, right? So We'll see how it goes to start. Lots of, I mean, I already have the over penciled in. I mean, that seems to be the consensus going around everywhere. I also have Montreal's team total. The line was minus 150 for over 2.5, which, like, it seems like a lot, but I felt like that number should have been much higher. So I hammered their team total over 2.5, and if I believe that it's going to be high scoring, I mean, we're just going to double down on it. So the over 5.5 is there for me. The over team total for the Canadiens as well. But again, I expect this game to be rough and tough right out of the gate.
So just keeping it to game one here, I don't have a side or anything or a total here, but I do have two props that are in line with the way you're thinking. I like the over 26.5 minus 110 for saves for Jakob Dobish and over 23.5 minus 125 for Alex Lyon. Go over on both because I think now you might still get a game that totals around that 6, but I think you're going to see a lot of pucks on net tonight. You can see a lot of shots on goal there. So that's what I think. That's my read for game one. Now, you said that there's no Anthony Cirelli on the Buffalo Sabres, which that is true. He is a Selke nominee today, along with Nick Suzuki. And I forget who the third guy was that was nominated for it. But Ryan McLeod is kind of like a four-man Cirelli in a way. So they do have a guy. He's done a good job for them as their second-line center this year. Josh Norris is their third-line center. Like, they have some decent depth down the middle that gets overlooked. In terms of the series, I think we'll go 7. I don't think this is going to be anything shorter than that. I do have Montreal prevailing. I just like the way they're playing. No, but again, this is a coin flip series here. But for tonight, I like the over on 26.5 saves for Jakob Dobish and 23.5 for Alex Lyon.
Apologies to Brock Nelson. He is the other Selke nominee. Not that he's not good.
No disrespect.
No disrespect.
Because the Avalanche are off until Saturday. So, like,
right. I mean, you know what I mean? They're just steamrolling their opponents. My bad, bro. But you are right. Listen, it's, again, no disrespect to the Buffalo Sabres. Not at all.
I feel like we're saying that every round.
You know, Anthony Cirelli is a Selke award. And I feel like Cirelli had one of those maybe coming out parties as to what John Cooper said he was. Because every time we talked about Anthony Cirelli being on Team Canada, they were like, well, why would he be here? And then, I got to watch him too much in the first round. And, you know, Cirelli is out there every time against the Habs top line, and they were neutralized completely. They didn't make a difference. It was a battle. It was a tactical point every single way. Not that Josh Norris can't defend on his own end. Not that Ryan McLeod can't. They are just not they're not at the level of Cirelli. And the same, like, give Jake Gensel a lot of credit too. He was very good on his line as well. He was capable to drive the play both offensively and be defensively responsible in his own zone as well. He played very well. Yes. So again, it's not that this series is easier because it's a totally different animal. It's a totally different animal. And the Buffalo Sabres they can generate offense, but they can also pound you into the ground. So there's going to be a lot of physicality to it. I do believe this series, like, it's not going to be over quick, and there are going to be a ton of swings. They're
very, very evenly matched. They're very this is what a second round matchup should be. So for as much as we complain about the format, here's one where I got it right.
I'm trying to find a place where I can take the over on shots for the Canadiens in the second period. I believe they'll have more than 0 in game one in shots in the second period. I think that's a safe bet, but I can't find it. So,
and that's the thing. If you can win a game without taking a single shot in a period, like the Canadiens are like St. Louis is like, he could have beat you multiple different kind of ways in his career, and in different stages of his career, he found different ways to be effective and useful. And that's what he's coaching his team the same way. And that it's for somebody that doesn't have a dog in the fight, except for the fact that you're my friend and I know a couple of Canadian fans. They're a fun team to watch. I enjoy watching them. They're well coached, and you know, Buffalo's had a fantastic season. So you're having these two teams meet off in the second round, with likely Carolina waiting for them for the right to go to the Stanley Cup. You know, that's as good as it gets here. Let's hope it lives up to what we think. Yes. I said Montreal in 7. You have a series prediction. Also, does Slavkovsky get off the schneid tonight? Do we at least get a point out of him? An assist, something?
I think he can. Montreal's power play was not terrible. They were able to generate some chances. That's where most of their damage came from. It did come early in the series. I think Slafkovsky is a big enough body to be able to take care of business, get to the front of the net, create chances. I think as Montreal's top line generates more chances 5-on-5, he will be able to generate more chances as well. I also think Montreal's power play is going to get a good opportunity. Buffalo has to correct it, and the Canadiens' penalty kill is by no means elite.
No.
But you cannot be operating at a 1 for whatever on the power play in the playoffs. Like, you got to make teams pay when they take a penalty, especially if we think early in the series, it's going to be a little bit of rough and tough. So at one point, a referee is going to pull out one to try to calm the game. It's two veteran, officials going tonight. They're going to try to at some point make sure that this game doesn't get off the rails. So don't be surprised if they start taking one guy out of the pile. And again, you have to stay disciplined. And if you're the Buffalo Sabres, take advantage of those chances. Montreal's penalty kill, I mean, there's passive and then there's whatever they are.
They're third worst. They're lucky that the Ducks and the Wild are worse than them. Like, that's the only reason why they're third worst of the remaining teams.
They sat back. That penalty kill is just giving you, like, it makes me anxious way too much. But listen, something's got to give on either side. Best way to cure this, Montreal, don't take penalties. Buffalo, convert on those chances. But I have Montreal in 6, right? The Habs demonstrated that they can go on the road and win games. They went into Tampa Bay and won 3 out of 4 games. That is beyond exceptional at this point. If you would have told me Montreal wins the series, but 3 of those wins came on the road, I would have been like, oh man, okay. They were a good road team all year. They split the series in Buffalo as well. It's important to be good on the road, and I think the Montreal Canadiens have that edge.
2 things before we move on here. One, I feel like, for as much as we have the division-based playoff format, like home ice, I almost feels like matters less, which sounds stupid, but these teams go into these buildings all the time. They're there at least twice a year in most instances. Once they go to 84-game schedule, then everybody will be in the building twice a year. Like, they know what they're walking into. I feel like the home ice advantage actually works a little better when you get that random division, other division team in the conference that maybe isn't as used to going there with turnover stuff. So yeah. The one thing I will say about the other thing I'll say, Buffalo, their power play doesn't even have to get hot. It just has to get to average, and that could tip the scales in the series. They just have to do a mediocre job. Just get back to a middle of the pack power play, and that could change the course of the series here.
If they operated at 12%, that's 3 times better than it is now. That probably makes a difference. So,
and like you said,
anything better than what it is now would help.
And like you said, with Montreal's penalty kill being not so great, being passive, here's a chance to maybe, you get that. If here's that first power play for Buffalo is big tonight, because you get on the first one, it's almost like not necessarily problem solved, but a big step towards it, where if Montreal kills it off, here we go. So that first power play where Buffalo has the man advantage, that'll be key. So there we go. So that's looking at game 1 in that series there. We'll talk Carolina, Philly in a little bit, because that game coming up tomorrow night. Out west, Vegas leads 1-0. Their game 2 is tonight. So we'll see what happens as that series is about to shift back to Orange County. Colorado up 2-0 after a couple of wild games, no pun intended. Sure, that's been said a lot around the internet last, week and a half, 2 weeks, but nonetheless, that series does not go again until Saturday. So an extended break there, which for guys like Eriksson Ek and Brodin, talk more about that later, that could be a difference maker. But looking at tonight's game between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks, it's going to be Lucas Dostal versus Carter Hart. Anaheim 0 for 4 in the power play in game 1. We talked about bad power plays. They were 8 for 16 against Edmonton. So facing a much stiffer penalty kill here. Jackson Lacombe has 10 points in 7 playoff games so far. Guy who's not done much is Beckett Seneca, only 1 point in the 2026 playoffs, and he's been a -6 on the road. I know we say plus minus is not a useful number, but sometimes something like that gives you a little bit of a window of how you're playing. That's one of those situations. Vegas has got a 4-game winning streak. Last time they won 5 in a row in the playoffs was 2023. They did that twice en route to a Stanley Cup. Still rolling along on the torts at 12-2-1. Brett Howden, of all people, has a 4-game goal streak and 9 goals in his last 19 playoff games. Ivan Barbashev, 7-game point streak. Mitch Marner, 4-game point streak. So Marner off to a little bit of a slow start in that first series. He's been picking it up over the last few games. Vegas, perfect, 14 for 14 over the penalty kill in their last four games, 19 for 20 in the playoffs here. So series, game one is a low scoring. I don't think a lot of us expected it to be a low scoring game. Ended up being that way. Definitely had a little bit of a feeling out period, which you don't really see between division opponents. But the Ducks haven't seen this version of the Golden Knights. All their meetings occurred before the coaching change. So yeah, the Ducks played them well this season. I'm gonna throw it all out the window at that point. So I think tonight we're gonna get that offense that we all expect here. Vegas has the 4th best scoring offense during the playoffs. Anaheim's 3rd. I'm not fooled by game one. I think we're going to see goals. All 3 of these regular season meetings totaled 7. I think we'll see even more goals when we get back to Anaheim, and they can kind of control when they get guys out there. But tonight, it's at 6.5 at most books. I'm going to play it safe. You could get it at even money at over 6.5, or you could get over 6 minus 130. I'm going to take that safer route just in case you get a strong goaltending output from Carter Hart. The other thing I'm looking at here is Pavel Dorofeyev to get a point minus 125. Started the playoff slow, but he's got a point in 3 of his last 4, including a hat trick a few games ago. Easily get one on the power play tonight. So those are my plays for game 2 of the series. Talk rest of the series prediction in a second.
Yeah, I think the Anaheim Ducks realized pretty quickly that the Vegas Golden Knights are in no way the Edmonton Oilers. It is not going to be that easy. The defense, the Oilers' defense was atrocious. Goaltending was absolutely miserable, and they kind of hit a wall in that first game. They didn't generate a ton of chances. We saw them be able to, fire pucks on goal on the road. That didn't happen with Vegas. They are a very structured team. They're deep, right? You talked about Howden being able to score goals. Like, Vegas can hit you from so many angles. And in typical Tortorella fashion, right? Because I was scouring the internet trying to figure out, I try to go with, block shots this time of year. Those are good parlay bets to put together because, as the over on the block shots, everybody's trying to block shots. Everybody's trying to block it, especially when you got games that go to overtime. It just feels like it's an automatic. And I double checked the math because I thought this was wrong, but Shea Theodore leads all defensemen in the playoffs in block shots. He has 22. The next closest to him on his team is Rasmus Anderson, who has 15.
That's the Tortorella effect. He will get guys that don't block shots or they do it, but it's not necessarily like an emphasis in their game. They start doing you will not get ice time as a defenseman unless you are blocking an adequate amount of shots on the Tortorella. That's just how it's been for the last 27 whatever years.
You can teach John Tortorella some new tricks, but the one thing you are doing if you play for him is you are getting your body in the lane and you are blocking shots because Shea Theodore has 9 in the last 2 games. So, and again, the Ducks didn't really generate a ton of chances to the net. So I think they have to get more pucks on goal. I think that's a fair assessment, and they have the talent to do so. They got to push the pace a little bit because the quality of chance is just not there. I am with you as well. I think the over is in play here. Dostal is giving up 3, so that's a given. Minimum 3, probably more. I'm not buying Carter Hart's first game performance. He was a little bit yes, he had a good game to close out against Utah, but I'm not buying that first game against Anaheim. I think the Ducks can do some damage. So I have taken the shot block prop for Shea Theodore. You can get it at +3 over on DraftKings. I had got it at +155, which I thought was very generous to go down that route. If this game, even if it does end up high scoring and we see a little bit of overtime because both teams don't have a goalie you can make safe, again, it's going to go up. But my emphasis here is probably that the Ducks have to come out, push the pace a little bit. They have to create more chances than they did in game 1. That power play is good. They have to generate chances. They have to get on the man advantage. They got to fire pucks on goal. And Shea Theodore is going to be the guy who's going to have to step in front of a lot of them. Because I got burned by Rasmus Anderson a couple of nights ago. I was like, hey, he should easily block 2 shots, and he didn't. And that's when I started to dig and realize that, maybe Theodore and Tortorella have been hanging out after hours, and Torts is just showing him videos of, again, in the first Happy Gilmore, and Adam's standing he's standing in front of in the batting cage, just taking balls, trying to toughen up. I think maybe that's what happened to Shea Theodore here, but that's right. I'm right there with you. The over. I'm not going to play it safe. Over 6.5. The empty net goal could probably help here, but Shea Theodore to block at least 3 shots. That could happen before the second period even ends.
Another one I'm looking at too is Cutter Gauthier, 4+ shots on goal, -115. He's got that more often than not in the playoffs there. Usually you see that a little bit higher. So that's another one I'm considering there. Leo Carlson also, shots on goal 4+ is +125. Maybe that's something you look at when they get back home.
Yeah.
He can get him away a little bit. But yeah, if I had to pick a side, I think, Anaheim's got to get a road game at some point. I think this is their best chance. I don't see them stealing a game 7 in Vegas if the series somehow went that far. Maybe they could win in game 5, but I think this is their best chance to win if you think Anaheim's going to get a game in Vegas this series. So there you go. I'm going the safe route over 6 -130, and Pavel Dorofeev to get a point, -125. Now, the next series that's going to take place here is the Hurricanes and the Flyers. So one standalone game tomorrow night. By the way, let's make sure we appreciate that we have a doubleheader tonight. We have a doubleheader Friday, because the doubleheaders go away pretty much next week. Because then, once series start ending, possibilities go away, and they won't do 2 conference finals on the same night next round. That's just not happening. So enjoy the doubleheaders while they dwindle down. We don't have any till October. But right now, the Flyers +140 home dogs. The Carolina Hurricanes -166 road favorites. Over 5.5 +120, under 5.5 -142. If you think Carolina could win by 2, is +160. You somehow think Philly can do that, it's +300. So, game 1, pretty much Carolina dominated the first period, and then just, did what they did. They held on and they played they're the better team. There's been some talk about, oh, this is why you go to 1-8 in the first round and all that. And yeah. But like, it don't matter now. Like, this is the matchup we got. Game 2, Philly played it much better. Obviously, this game goes to overtime. Carolina always seems to find a way. But for me, you're going to get a desperate Flyers team in this one. They go down 0-3, it's over. Like, you're not recovering at that point. So I think, Dan Vladar has only lost 3 in a row on one occasion this season. That was a 6-game streak. 2 of those did go to overtime. And again, as good as Freddie Anderson has been playing, and he's probably the Conn Smythe leader right now, as the guy would most likely get it. I'm still waiting for that other shoe to drop on him. Even if it's not like, oh, he plays poorly for the rest of the playoffs, he's got to have a subpar game at some point. Maybe this is it right here. Like I said, I think Canes in 6 was my prediction, and maybe it's more like Canes in 5 now. But I don't think we're going to see a sweep here. I think Philly fights back a bit tomorrow night. I'm taking them on the money line.
It would be nice of Philly to actually join and turn this into a fight. They had a fantastic start in game 2, and then they just stopped. And they let the Carolina Hurricanes claw their way back into the game, keep it going. They put together a good effort in overtime, but didn't happen. It doesn't seem like they're interested in getting in front of Frederik Andersen in any way, shape, or form. It's just not consistent enough, because I am with you. Freddie Andersen is a flaming pile of terrible. So I don't know how he has gotten here, but he is a house of cards. That thing, when it comes tumbling down, it's going to come tumbling. The problem is the Carolina Hurricanes are elite in the way that they play. That back end is fantastic. They are deep up front. Their second line with Stankoven, Jackson Blake, and Taylor Hall cannot be stopped. You have to worry about their top line, right? Because you got to worry about Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis. You have no choice. And then, oh, by the way, this second line is just pounding us. And the Flyers have no answer. No answer. Porter Matone has looked invisible, which is fair, by the way. He is a child.
That's the thing. He came into this having to play he was there was no warm up period for him. Yeah. He was going to have to cool off at some point. It's just natural.
And he's ran into a team that can that is so structured in the way that they play, they will suffocate you. Now the Carolina Hurricanes go on the road where they were the best team in generating shots. So in no way does this get easier for the Flyers. Yes, they're going to have a better matchup at home and they're going to be able to get whoever they want, but it doesn't feel like Carolina's even worried about the matchup at that point. It doesn't seem like Brandon Moore's saying, okay, I need to, get Aho away from like Couturier or whoever. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you send out there. The Carolina Hurricanes can easily run 4 lines without breaking a sweat. So I'm going to go the whole way here for the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm going to take their puck line, minus 1.5, though. Maybe the empty netter is going to be needed, but the Flyers they played 5 good minutes of hockey in 60 minutes in game 2. They had a good overtime and they weren't rewarded. But outside of that, they have not looked good. They have not generated any offense. You can't rely on a rookie to lead the way. Somebody else has to step up on that team. Somebody's got to get to the front of net. Somebody's got to make Freddie Anderson's life difficult. You had 2 chances to do that in game 1 and 2. Barely got a sniff. So I don't know when we're going to see it. I don't think it's going to happen in game 3. I can see the Flyers going down 0-3 here and then being backs against the wall kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they get one here. I think the series will go back to Carolina. Well, like I said before, even though at the beginning of the series I said Carolina in 6, I don't know if this series goes back to Philly once it leaves Philly after game 4. That could be a Carolina in 5. And we'll talk more about this later when we look at the exact result odds. Carolina is winning the East. And that's not, again, to be disrespectful to Montreal or Buffalo, but Montreal just went through the ringer against Tampa Bay. Listen, Buffalo won in 6, but that was not an easy series against Boston. They certainly, like you alluded to, like you mentioned on Twitter, Charlie McAvoy taking batting practice there. So again, not an easy 6 games. I think they're just going to be too beat up for a Carolina team that may have lost 1 or 2 games the entire playoffs and is very rested. Like you said, run 4 lines. So yeah, I think Carolina is going to walk the Stanley Cup. Talk more about that later because we still got one more game to get to here while we go through all 4 series. This series does not resume until Saturday. I did not exactly look up what it was, but apparently there was a scheduling conflict with the Wild play-in. But nonetheless, right now they are plus 110 slight home underdogs. Colorado minus 130 on the money line. Puck line play here. If you think Minnesota can cover a puck and a half, plus 215. If you think Colorado can do it, plus 200. Regulation victory, like in this series, the way it's gone, yeah, it's a possibility. Plus 125 for Colorado, plus 150 for Minnesota. Total over 6.5 is plus 110. Under 6.5 minus 130 for this series here. Looking at this one, the only things I would look at here is I would, consider the Wild on the money line for the same reason that the Flyers, like you go down 0-3 to Colorado, it's over. And again, the extra few days, like it also depends. You have Joel Eriksson Ek back. You have Brodin back. Both are possibilities. But both could also miss game 3. So if you have those 2 guys back, that makes a huge difference for the Minnesota Wild here. One thing I do think we'll see is a little bit more of a more honest defensive and more low-scoring effort. Just because, listen, and I know Minnesota is very thin down the middle right now, and it doesn't help that Colorado is extremely deep down the middle, but they cannot afford to get into early track meets with Colorado. You're never going to beat them that way. They have to find a way to muck it up, keep it as low-scoring as possible. So, again, before you make any plays, I got to see if they have Eriksson Ek and or Brodin back. But I would lean under 6.5 here, maybe Wild money line, just because they got to win this game if they're going to have any chance at clawing back in this series.
I'm right there in that boat with you about waiting to see what's happening. If I had to, if I'm trying to beat the odds, right, and take a position before lines start moving, I expect Joel Eriksson Ek to play.
Same.
That's my bet. I don't know if Brodin will play, but you're exactly right. They cannot get into a track meet with the Colorado Avalanche because Colorado Avalanche win that track meet every single time. I also don't know what the play was turning to Philip Gustafsson for game 2. I get that Wallstead gave up 8. I get it. But at the same time,
that guy gave up 6.
Wedgwood gave up 6 and he played again. And I mean, some of those goals he gave up were not fantastic. First shot Philip Gustafsson faces, It's in the back of the net, and it's one of those that just squeak under his arm. The third goal was not any better. And you're like, okay, but like you turn to this guy and you're like, what are you trying? Like, what are you trying to get? What's the advantage here? And are you trying to give Wallstead a rest? Like, is that the goal? Like, you were trying to rest him after getting absolutely bombarded in game one? I don't know what the conversation was. Obviously, we have no idea. My guess here is this is Wallstead's net again, because Philip Gustafson did himself absolutely no favors. And, Colorado's defense hasn't been 100% perfect here. We've seen the breakdowns, and that was on home ice, where, just not as crisp as I think we've seen in the past. I would play the over because, first of all, if Colorado is winning and there's 3 minutes left, you could just pencil in the Nathan McKinnon empty net goal. I get he wins the Rocket, but man, there's a ton of those pucks fly to the back of the net without a goalie. I get it. It's fine. I might be salty because Cole Caulfield doesn't win it, but again, like Colorado scores once that net's empty. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to put it in the back of the net. So if this game is close, even if it's 3-2 or 4-2, like they're pulling their goalie because like what else do you got to lose at this point, right? I don't think Wedgwood has been good enough to hold fort. And again, you put up 8 on Wallstead. Like that, I get he's got to be better, but a lot of that wasn't his fault.
A lot of it wasn't his fault. A, B, he's still a young goalie that has played a big run of games, like you said. Maybe that's what, like, when I saw that Gustafson was like, whoa, like Wallstead didn't, like, pulling a goalie is one of the few things that, yes, analytics could help, but that is very much a vibe thing. Sometimes you're going to pull a goalie at 3-0 because he's looked terrible on those 3. Sometimes you're going to pull a goalie at 3-0 because the team plays like shit in front of him and you're trying to wake everybody up. And you're like, hey, this isn't on you. I'm just trying to rattle.
Minnesota was leading after 2 periods in game 1. So it's not like you could pull Wallstead there and be like, hey, man, job's, night's over for you. No, they were winning, and then they collapsed in the third again. So,
and there are nights where 7-6, and neither goalie has a chance of getting pulled because that's just the way the game has gone. So again, maybe this is just because of the extended layoff. Now you get Wallstead a ton of time off. And yes, it could have been bad because what if Gustafson had a shutout? And now you got a problem. If the plan was to go back to Wallstead, now you can't. Now you've already played the card. So,
I'm not sure how that's going to rattle him a little bit. Again, it depends on the conversation that was being had. Maybe they said, "Hey, man, listen, it was a rough one for you. Take a breather." Right? They have
a lot of hockey for us, more than you've
right.
Ever
played. They have a capable backup. Right? It's just Philip Gustafson was just not ready to go. Not ready to go. You can't give up the first shot. You can't give up the goal on the first shot on that type of shot. Like, you can't do it, man. It's just, and even the third one that Waugh scored, like, it's like, it looks like he thinks it's going past him, like wide, and it's in the net. And I'm like, what are we doing here, buddy? What's going on?
And like, A, you can't have that. B, you especially can't have that the way game 1 went, where it was just, it was just unbelievable amount of offense. Like, I was producing that night for Beeson, and even the host is like, I cannot believe what I'm watching right now. It's like, he's like, it's 5-5 in the second period.
I took the under, by the way, in game 1, in case anybody was wondering how that went. I was like, you know what? 2 very good goalies. I get there's a ton of offense, above average defense. It's going to be a low scoring event. Ha! Lo and behold, maybe that was my fault, but listen, I'm pounding the over again. I'm going to pound the over until one of these teams shows me that they can hold down the fort, and I don't think they can. There's just so much skill on the ice at any given time.
Colorado was the top road under team this year, and I understand regular season and playoffs are different animals, but when you're the top team at something, that's something to consider. And again, I think if they get Eriksson Ek back, some might point us out as a reason that it could go over because now you have a quality top center there to help Minnesota and it bumps everybody down a spot. I think if anything, that helps the under because now you got a guy that you can trust to go out there and play. You have guys that can do that, but not like it just makes everybody slot back where they belong to a degree. So I think it helps with the matchups too. So especially Minnesota being at home and being able to maybe try and slow down that McKinnon line at least a little bit, trying to get their best matchup. So yeah, that was why I would go under here. But again, we got to see going to be healthy for Minnesota with this extended playoff. So the other thing I wanted to look at today before we take care of say farewell and we come back to you sometime next week, depending upon what happens with my jury duty situation here. Let's talk about exact Stanley Cup final results, odds here. We don't have to spend any time. The Flyers aren't winning the series. Um, could we spend a little more time on Anaheim? I mean, they're not beating Colorado. They're not beating even if they managed to get to the Stanley Cup final somehow, they would not beat Carolina. Probably they wouldn't beat Buffalo, they wouldn't beat Montreal, and we've already said Philly cannot get there. Not gonna waste time on the Ducks. Agreed?
So listen, sorry, Anaheim. I told them, I was like, listen, man, it's great that you're here, Ducks. It's good, good momentum builder for the future, but that's it, man. We got to call PETA. There may be a duck that's dead at the end of the series.
Now that being said, Anaheim will probably try to make some upgrades and additions, and they are very live to win the Pacific next year because Vegas did
Yeah.
not win it. Now again, Vegas much different team now in what they had for the bulk of the year in Cassidy and Tortorella, and we'll see what Tortorella is going to do because they keep winning like this. I can't I could see him if they win the cup. I could see him be like, "Nope, I'm good. I don't need to come back and go through training camp and do all that. I helped you out. I'm out." But I don't know. I don't. Let's see what Vegas code. But yes, Anaheim very live to win the division next year. Especially we'll see what happens with Edmonton. Let's talk about the Vegas Golden Knights as they're playing tonight. Their odds to beat the Stanley Cup, to beat Carolina in Stanley Cup would be 12-1, Buffalo 20-1, Montreal 22-1, Philly 40-1 to be the Stanley Cup champion, plus 550 to win the West, plus 225. They they could give Colorado problems. I will say if they met in the second round, they could give Colorado problems. It would be a much closer series against Minnesota. But Vegas, if you think that they can get there, 12-1 over Carolina. If you think Carolina is a lock to come out of the East, you could do worse.
No, I just don't see Carter Hart standing. Like, we're watching Colorado bully Jesper Wallstedt, Philip Gustafsson. Like, I get, like, Anton Forsberg was at least on a team that, like, just played defense. That's all they wanted to do. And he was having himself an absolute, run at the end there. But you're telling me Carter Hart's all, like, I don't know how many, some of those players might be dead from the amount of shots they'd have to block. So I just don't see it. I don't see anybody coming out of the West that is not named Colorado.
So we move on to the Wild here. So if the Wild don't win in the next game, then because their odds jumped like crazy after going down 0-1-2. Stanley Cup champion 30-1, Western Conference champ 13-1. If they were going to beat the Hurricanes 55-1, Buffalo 110-1, Montreal 130-1, and Philly 170-1.
The NHL would cry if it was a Minnesota Buffalo final. Like, that would be great.
Minnesota Carolina would be worse. At least Buffalo has some intrigue. Like, have never won. They went there in the mid '70s, but ran into the Flyers.
It'd be great for that kind of like
good.
Close to Canada kind of thing, right? Where you can get enough care and Midwest kind of thing. But man, the NHL would cry.
So that is one thing the NHL does have to worry about is they really want Colorado or Vegas to get through out of the West and out of the East. I mean, at this point, like they would like Philly of the teams remaining, but that's not being realistic in terms from a rating standpoint. So I guess Buffalo or Carolina know this, but Montreal does not count towards anything towards ratings here. So
Gary hates Canada. I think we can all establish. Like, we know that now. He hates it. Even though, listen, Montreal, Tampa Bay, excellent ratings on ESPN. So people care, just not Gary.
Well, that was one thing, and we'll move on to Colorado here in a second. But that was one thing ESPN and Turner is doing better than what NHL and NBC did. Is the NHL and NBC would rather give you pick 8 teams: Blackhawks, Rangers, Flyers, Penguins, Bruins, Blues, Avalanche, Stars, and maybe a couple of, and just anytime any of those two teams playing with rather than like a Montreal, Tampa Bay, that would have been, we can't have a Canadian. Sorry. It's like, no, if it's good hockey, hockey fans will tune in. That is how a hockey fan mind works. Nonetheless, Colorado here, which, let's face it, this is the team that's, on a mission for a Stanley Cup this year, and they still look like it. We'll talk about, obviously Philly 14-1 is not going to happen. Over Montreal plus 850, Buffalo plus 700, plus Carolina plus 380. To be the overall champ is plus 155. To win the West, they're already at minus 165. That goes to show what everybody thinks about the Western Conference there. Um, yeah, I mean, you have to look at them because Colorado is the odds-on favorite here. You know, again, to me, it's just Carolina out of the East. So we could talk, to me, where we have discussions is who Carolina would beat out of the West. Colorado to beat Carolina, yes. I mean, plus 380, but like you're probably not going to get any. If you're going to play that, do it now because it's not going to get any better.
No, it's true. Listen, Colorado is a certified wagon team. They are well coached. They are well built. They can hit you from so many different angles. And yes, Carolina is, the team that they are. That would be a crazy matchup from a head coach standing because those are two fantastic coaches that can kind of let their lines roll and just say, you know what, best against best doesn't matter. Figure it out. See what's got to happen. Um, I'd like to see them play Montreal, but I don't think that series would be very, very long because Montreal first of all, having to go out west in Colorado in elevation. Like, I get that the Montreal Canadiens once won a game in Colorado. They also got absolutely obliterated one game as well. So I don't know how long the dream will last, but it all signs are pointing to Colorado, Carolina, unless somebody messes up.
I will say this: if you are like me, where you think the Flyers can win Game 3 and the Wild can win Game 3, then wait to play Colorado, or Carolina till after those games because you get better odds at that point. And then probably won't get better odds than that. So if that scenario were to happen, where both the Wild and the Flyers were to take Game 3, that's probably your last best chance to take Colorado, Carolina. Now shifting over to the East, like we said, Carolina. This is the big one here because again, Montreal or Buffalo in advance. I think we both agree they're both going to be worse for wear versus a Carolina team that will very well rested unless Philly makes a series of it. Be the Stanley Cup champ plus 180, Eastern Conference champ minus 190. So they have better chance in the East. Colorado does in the West, according to Vegas. The Carolina to beat the Avalanche plus 450, which I like. Vegas plus 700. Minnesota and Anaheim both 30 to 1. So that goes to show you what they think about either of those teams coming out of the West at that point. It would be both either Carolina Vegas or Carolina Colorado would be excellent matchups there. Again, I guess the goaltending is like this year is like probably less. We're gonna have a lot of guys in the like at the final rounds of the playoffs that were backups at one point, or we thought were washed up at various points, like or rookies. That's basically what we have here. There's no Vasilevskis at this point. There's no. That's how it is. There's no There's no Shesterkins. No like goalies that are going to carry you. Maybe the way they're playing, but nobody that you look at and like, oh, that's a Sorokin, a Vezina candidate kind of guy.
Yeah, bad. If you're an NHL goalie looking for a massive payday, the worst thing that can happen for you is Carolina and Vegas meets in the first round because then those teams can just go and be like, buddy, I picked off a guy off the streets. And, for Carolina, it's we resurrected the corpse
You
of
got the
Freddie
best
Anderson.
duct tape available.
Literally, they pulled him out of a river and said, hey, man, stand here. Because, again, Freddie Anderson was horrendous during the regular season. Carter Hart, we know all that aside, it's, he's been thrusted into this position and it hasn't been an absolute disaster. Like it hasn't been smooth, but it hasn't been a disaster. So if it was Vegas, so if Carolina were to meet Vegas, I would pick Carolina to beat Vegas. Plus 700 would be the money I would go with. That would be the only one after that. I don't see Minnesota. I don't see Anaheim getting there. If they did, I would still take Carolina to beat those teams. The only team I don't think Carolina can beat is Colorado.
I think that would be for Colorado. That's the team that you're like, all right, we have to mind our P's and Q's with them. Like that, you can't like that. That would be the one matchup that they can't afford to make any mistakes. Because I really think, as much as we talk about Colorado being on a mission, Carolina doesn't have Florida in their way this year. This is as easy as it's going to get to the Stanley Cup. You talk about we don't like the playoff format. Carolina loves the playoff format this year. They're getting red carpet rolled out all the way into the Eastern Conference Finals. So short of a major injury or Freddie Anderson coming back down to earth and Brandon Bussey playing more like second half Bussey than first half Bussey, which is possible. I mean, that's the you look at all these teams for the most part. Goaltending is the ultimate. How long will the goalies play like they're playing right now? So, two other teams to get to before we say farewell quick. Buffalo to beat Colorado 16-1, Vegas 22-1, Anaheim 90-1, Minnesota 110 to Stanley Cup champ 11-1, Eastern Conference champ plus 425. So again, do we think either Buffalo or Montreal would beat Carolina? And if so, I don't think either one of us would pick those teams to beat Colorado. So we don't think Anaheim is getting there. Buffalo or Montreal over Vegas or Minnesota in a head-to-head. How do you like any of those shaping up? And just to go through Montreal, 13-1 to win the Stanley Cup, plus 450 Eastern Conference, 22-1 to beat Colorado, 30-1 to beat Vegas, 130-1 to beat Minnesota, 120-1 to beat Anaheim.
That's fair there. I don't think Buffalo is, first of all, if I don't think Buffalo's getting past Montreal, clearly they can't win any of these. But I don't see Buffalo being able to get past Vegas or Colorado. I don't think they can get past Minnesota.
I think Minnesota would beat them too.
But yeah, they would roll them over. And Montreal had success against the Carolina Hurricanes during the regular season. The problem is it's the regular season, and none of that matters. None of that is all just made up stuff. It's pixie dust. It's not real. So also, do I like 22-1 is still not, that odd should be further because I don't see the Montreal Canadiens going in Colorado and having much success there.
If they go down 0-1, that will go higher.
Listen, the Montreal Canadiens would be they would be the underdog. They would not have home ice advantage. So they'd have to win all their games at home and then try to steal one in Colorado. I'm not saying it's an impossible task. It's quite tough. Vegas, again, it's kind of up to the goaltending. Listen, a Montreal Anaheim one.
They would have home ice against Vegas for what it's worth.
They would?
Because they have a higher point total.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. The pillow fight. I forgot the pillow fight conference.
They would have home ice over Minnesota too. 106, 104.
Huh. I don't think Minnesota would be a tough team. I don't want to play Minnesota. Listen, I'm old enough to remember when Montreal sent Vegas packing when the Canadiens were a Western Conference team for that COVID year. So who says they can't do it twice? If that would be the final, then yes, Vegas over Montreal. Montreal over Vegas, sorry. That would be interesting. But I wouldn't take them to beat Minnesota or Colorado. That just seems like an impossible task.
Montreal Anaheim would be Gary Bettman's biggest nightmare from a rating standpoint.
He'd shut the league down.
Montreal Anaheim, that might be 8-7 game.
It would be so much fun to watch, though. Skill.
It would from a rating standpoint.
He would cry.
Yeah.
He would cry.
He would cry.
He'd have to reevaluate the salary cap that's going up by $8.5 million. They'd be like, hey, actually, hockey revenue dropped. We're gonna have to readjust that number.
But it would be a hell of a matchup, Montreal Anaheim. But it would be like shades of the Ottawa Anaheim series from back in 2007 when it was like the travel was atrocious because I don't think there's any Ottawa to Orange County. Maybe there are now, but there weren't back then. But there you go. And again, if you want to talk about picks from earlier in the show, I know we're going to have the puck drop here on Buffalo, Montreal shortly, but for Vegas, Anaheim, and the other three games, you give our thoughts, go scroll back and you find it there. You'll see the image on the screen. And you have to worry about the timestamp there. But fantasyalarm.com/NHL, where you can find Chris's work other days of the week. Slapshot podcast, new episode dropped yesterday?
Monday. It had to drop Monday because the NHL already started the second round. We recapped the entire first round. I basically did a total of how I did. Spoiler alert, I did not get 100% of my picks right. But the good news is I gave my predictions for round two. And those ones are all going to be 100% right because that's how math works.
That's how it works.
So, exactly. You get to listen to that. We get to go through all of it. We'll break down each one of those, upcoming matchups. That was before some of these games happened. But listen, most of that stays true. You got to listen to find out.
There you go. Go check out the Slapshot podcast there. Our friend at Ant Rivera 86, Anthony Rivera, not here today. Should be back next week if there is an episode. Jury duty pending at Subway to Shea. Go check out the Mets If you're looking to feel good about the team you're rooting for, just go watch a Mets podcast. And unless there's like a small handful of teams that won't help, everybody else feeling better about yourself. And Rip and Riff with myself and Mr. Jarmore. You can check out the latest episodes there as well. But that does it for this edition of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. Probably the last time we'll have games on a night preview. So as good as the hockey's getting, we're getting to less and less of it. That one game that's on as a blowout or a bad game, it's no bueno. But for at Fuzzy Chris 91, I am at Pucking Thoughts Adam Bernard. Back with you hopefully next week, definitely the following week here on Total Hockey Now or the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and like, subscribe, all that good stuff. See you soon.